12 species stood on the frozen surface of Boreal 7, and none of them expected the humans to survive the first night. The ice trial was simple in its cruelty. Candidates would spend 72 hours on this frozen moon with no heat-generating technology, no thermal suits beyond basic clothing, and no rescue unless they pressed the emergency beacon. Those who pressed it failed. Those who died without pressing it became warnings for future generations. Danny Reeves watched the other species unpack their equipment. The Frostborn, massive creatures covered in thick white fur, barely seemed to notice the cold. Their leader, a female named Gritha, stood nearly 3 meters tall and laughed at the wind. The crystalline beings, made of living silicon that sparkled like diamonds, actually seemed more comfortable as the temperature dropped. They were the favorites to win. "We should not be here," whispered Priya Sharma, Danny's teammate. Her breath formed clouds that froze instantly in the -60-degree air. "We belong here more than any of them," Danny replied. He was a former Antarctic researcher who had spent 3 winters at the South Pole. His second teammate, Leo Anderson, had worked on fishing boats in Norway since he was 15. The Malari delegation, beings with tentacles and gel-covered bodies, were already shivering. The insectoid chitin clicked nervously to each other, their thin exoskeletons offering little protection. Several reptilian species huddled around equipment that hummed with power. Coordinator Sorrel, an elderly being with silver skin and patient eyes, addressed all candidates through translation devices. "The rules are absolute. No heat generation. No thermal regulation technology. No external assistance. The moon's temperature will drop to -80 degrees tonight. A storm approaches. You have 6 hours to prepare." Danny turned to his team. "Follow me. I know what we need." They walked away from the landing zone, while other species began constructing elaborate shelters. The Frostborn used biological secretions from their bodies to build ice walls. The crystalline beings simply stood together, their bodies naturally resistant. The reptilian species assembled complex structures that technically produced no heat but regulated internal temperatures through advanced engineering. The humans carried almost nothing. A small shovel each, basic clothing, some food and water that would freeze solid within hours. "There," Danny pointed to a large snowdrift about 200 meters from the main group. "That one." Leo frowned. "It is just snow. That snow will save our lives." Danny began digging, not down but sideways into the drift. He worked carefully, removing snow in chunks rather than powder. Priya and Leo watched with confusion at first, then joined him when he explained. "The snow itself is our shelter," Danny said between careful movements. "Air pockets between ice crystals make snow one of the best insulators in the universe. We dig a hollow inside, leave a small entrance below the sleeping area, and our body heat does the rest." "Body heat?" Priya asked. "We barely make any. We make enough. Trust me." For 4 hours, they worked in shifts. One person dug while 2 rested, then they rotated. Danny insisted they work slowly to avoid sweating. Wet clothing in extreme cold meant death. Back at the main camp, Coordinator Sorrel observed the human activity with interest. She had overseen 47 ice trials across her long career. She had never seen anyone dig into a snowdrift before. "What are they doing?" asked her assistant. "I have no idea," Sorrel admitted, "but I'm very curious to find out." By the 5th hour, the snow shelter was complete. From outside, it looked like nothing. A small hole in a white mound. Inside, however, there was room for 3 people to lie down comfortably. Danny had carved the interior into a dome shape and created a raised sleeping platform above the entrance tunnel. "Cold air sinks," he explained. "Warm air rises. The entrance is lower than where we sleep, so our body heat stays trapped above us. The snow walls will hold that heat inside." The storm arrived with the 6th hour. Wind screamed across the frozen plain at 200 kilometers per hour. The temperature plunged to -90 degrees. Inside their snow shelter, the 3 humans lay close together. Their combined body heat slowly raised the interior temperature. -50, -40. It stabilized around -10 degrees. This is amazing, Leo whispered. I can actually feel my fingers. Outside, the sophisticated alien shelters began to fail. The Malari's gel protection cracked in the extreme wind. Two reptilian species watched their power cells die and pressed their emergency beacons with frozen claws. The chitin barely survived by burying themselves under their failed equipment. The Frostborn weathered the storm easily. The crystalline beings seemed to enjoy it. But as morning approached and the winds died, Coordinator Sorrel counted the survivors. Only 5 species remained active. The Frostborn, the crystalline, the chitin barely, the Malari, suffering but stubborn, and the humans. Sorrel walked personally to the strange snow mound where no activity had been detected for 12 hours. She feared the worst. 3 frozen bodies, perhaps, preserved in their primitive shelter. Instead, a head emerged from the small entrance hole. Danny Reeves blinked in the morning light and smiled. Good morning, Coordinator. Lovely weather we are having. Behind him, Priya and Leo crawled out, stretching muscles that were stiff but very much alive. They had actually slept, in a storm that had killed candidates from technologically superior civilizations. Sorrel stared at the simple hole in the snow. Ow! Danny patted the snowdrift affectionately. My ancestors survived ice ages with this technique. 10,000 years of knowledge, Coordinator. Sometimes the old ways are the best ways. Gritha, the Frostborn leader, approached with new respect in her eyes. You built your shelter from the cold itself. We did. The enemy became our friend. The trial was far from over. But as the sun rose over Boreal 7, every surviving species looked at the 3 humans differently. Perhaps warm-blooded creatures from a moderate world were not so weak after all. The second day brought a choice that would define the rest of the trial. Coordinator Sorrel gathered the surviving candidates at what remained of the base camp. Broken shelters lay scattered across the ice like the bones of dead machines. Emergency beacon signals still blink from devices abandoned by failed species. 40 kilometers, Sorrel announced. The checkpoint lies 40 kilometers north. You must reach it within 36 hours. The temperature will continue to drop. Another storm system approaches. Move quickly or die slowly. Danny studied the horizon. 40 kilometers across open ice with temperatures approaching -80 degrees. Most humans would die within 2 hours of exposure at those temperatures. They would need to stop, rest, build shelters along the way. The Frostborn departed immediately. Gritha led her team at a steady run, their massive bodies generating enough internal heat to sustain them. The crystalline beings followed, their silicon forms clicking against the ice as they moved. Neither group needed to stop. We cannot keep up with them, Leo said. We do not need to, Danny replied. We need to arrive alive, not arrive first. The humans began their journey using a method that confused every observer. They walked for 90 minutes, then stopped. Danny and Priya began digging immediately while Leo stood guard and kept his blood moving. Within an hour, they had constructed a small emergency shelter. They rested inside for 30 minutes, letting their core temperatures recover. Then they collapsed the shelter and continued. Walk. Day. Rest. Repeat. Coordinator Sorrel watched from monitoring drones with growing fascination. They are building temporary homes and then destroying them. Inefficient, her assistant observed. Perhaps. Or perhaps they understand something we do not. By the 10th kilometer, the humans passed the struggling Malari. Navigator Una, leader of the tentacled beings, had collapsed against an ice formation. Her team of 4 surrounded her, their gel-based thermal protection cracking in the cold. One of them had already stopped moving entirely. Danny paused. How long have they been stationary? 2 hours at least, Priya estimated. Leo pulled at Danny's arm. We need to keep moving. They are competitors. Danny looked at the dying Malari. Una's large eyes met his, filled with pain, but also pride. She would not press her beacon. Her species needed ice world colonization rights desperately. The resources on frozen planets could save millions of her people from starvation on their overcrowded homeworld. She will die before she quits, Danny said. That is her choice, Leo replied. Danny shook his head. Not today, it is not. He walked toward the Malari. Una tried to wave him away with a weak tentacle. Human, go. Complete your trial. Do not waste time on us. Danny knelt beside her. Where I come from, we have a saying. No one gets left behind. We are not your people. Today you are. Danny turned to his teammates. We build a big one. Room for 8. Leo started to protest, but Priya was already digging. After a moment, Leo joined them. The Malari watched in confusion as the humans constructed a large snow shelter in record time. Danny directed the effort, expanding the techniques he had learned from his Antarctic years. Larger dome, higher ceiling, multiple sleeping platforms at different levels. Inside, Danny ordered when it was complete. All of you, we do not understand, Una said as her surviving team members helped her into the shelter. Snow traps heat, Danny explained once everyone was inside. 8 bodies make more heat than 3. We will warm up faster together than we would apart. He was right. Within an hour, the interior temperature had risen to almost 0 degrees. The Malari's cracked gel began to heal slowly. Color returned to Una's pale skin. Why? She asked Danny. Why help competitors? Danny thought about the question. In his years at the Antarctic Research Station, he had seen scientists from rival nations share supplies during emergencies. He had watched military enemies become allies when the cold threatened everyone equally. Survival is not a competition, he said finally. It never was. The cold does not care about borders or species or politics. It wants to kill all of us equally. The only way to beat something that powerful is to stand together. Una was quiet for a long moment. Then she reached out with a tentacle and touched Danny's hand. My people have traveled the stars for 10,000 years. We have fought wars and built empires and conquered worlds. Never once in all that history has another species helped us without expecting something in return. I do not expect anything, Danny said. I know. That is what makes this so remarkable. They rested for 3 hours while the second storm passed overhead. Inside their shared shelter, humans and Malari exchanged stories. Danny learned that Una had been a navigator for 40 years, mapping trade routes across the galaxy. Una learned that humans had once been trapped on a single planet, unable to reach even their own moon, and had still managed to survive ice ages that lasted thousands of years. You survived by building these? Una asked, gesturing at the snow walls. By building these and by helping each other. My ancestors could not have survived alone. They formed tribes, shared food, protected the weak. Those who helped each other lived. Those who did not died. When a storm passed, the combined group emerged together. The Malari could move again. Their gel had healed enough to provide basic protection. 25 kilometers to go, Priya reported. Una straightened to her full height. My people are excellent navigators. We can find the fastest path through the ice fields ahead. Let us repay some of the debt we owe. And so humans and Malari continued north together. 2 species that had never met before the trial, now moving as one unit. Building shelters together. Sharing warmth. Surviving. Coordinator Sorrel watched the unlikely alliance with something she had not felt in decades of overseeing trials. Hope. Log this, she told her assistant. For the first time in Galactic Union history, competing species have formed a survival alliance during an official trial. Is that permitted? Her assistant asked. Sorrel smiled. There is no rule against it. I suspect because no one ever imagined it would happen. 15 kilometers from the checkpoint, the Alliance found 2 more survivors. The chitin were dying. Their insectoid bodies lay half-buried in snow, their thin exoskeletons cracked in dozens of places. Of the original 4 chitin candidates, only 2 remain alive and barely so. Leave them, one of Malari said. They would not help us. Navigator Una turned on her subordinate with anger in her eyes. Did the humans leave us? Did they calculate whether we were worth saving? The Malari fell silent. Danny was already kneeling beside the larger of the 2 chitin. The insectoid clicked weakly, compound eyes struggling to focus. Can you understand me? Danny asked. More clicks. Then, through a translation device, nearly frozen solid, a voice emerged. We understand. We accept death. Our species has failed the trial. You have not failed yet, Danny said. Can you move? Our bodies do not function below -50 degrees. Our joints freeze. Our blood becomes solid. Priya, check the temperature. It is -72 right now. Danny looked at the chitin's bodies. They were built for efficiency, not survival. Thin limbs designed for precise movement. Large heads containing impressive brains. Exoskeletons that protected against predators but not against cold. If we warm them, will they recover? Danny asked. Unknown, the chitin replied. No chitin has ever survived temperatures this low. Our species has no data. Danny made his decision. Una, I need you people to help carry them. Leo, Priya, start digging. We need the biggest shelter yet. The Malari lifted the two chitin with their strong tentacles. They moved quickly to a nearby drift where the humans had already begun construction. Working together now as a practice team, they completed a large shelter in less than an hour. Inside, 8 Malari and 2 chitin pressed close to the 3 humans. The combined body heat of 13 beings raised the temperature rapidly. The first chitin began to click frantically. My joints. They move. How is this possible? Warmth, Danny said simply. Your blood is thawing, but there is no heat source. You're the heat source. All of you. Every living being produces heat. Alone, it is not enough. Together, it is everything. The second chitin, smaller than the first, uncurled slowly from protective ball. The human speaks truth. I can feel warmth I did not generate. It comes from the others. For the next 2 hours, the Alliance rested while the chitin recovered. Danny used the time to teach shelter construction techniques to anyone who would listen. The Malari proved to be excellent students, their precise tentacles capable of detailed work. The chitin asked dozens of questions about insulation theory and thermodynamics. Your species discovered this through trial and error? The larger chitin asked. Through necessity, Danny replied. When the Ice Ages came, we had no technology, no starships, no advanced materials. We had only each other and our ability to learn from the world around us. Remarkable. My people have extensive theoretical knowledge of thermodynamics. We have built climate control systems for 100 worlds. Yet we never considered using snow itself as insulation. Sometimes the simplest solutions are invisible to the most advanced minds. The chitin considered this a profound observation. I will remember it. When the Alliance finally emerged from the shelter, the landscape had changed. A glacier field stretched before them, filled with deep crevasses hidden beneath thin snow bridges. One wrong step could mean falling into darkness from which there was no return. This is where many candidates fail, Una said. Even the Frostborn lose members in the glacier fields. Can you navigate through it? Danny asked. Una studied the terrain with her experienced eyes. Yes, but it will be slow and dangerous. Slow is fine. Dead is not. The Alliance moved forward with Una leading. Her navigation skills proved invaluable. She could read subtle changes in snow color that indicated hidden crevasses. She found paths that seemed impossible but held firm under their combined weight. Behind the Malari, the 3 humans walked carefully. Behind the humans, the 2 chitin moved on recovering legs, still clicking with amazement at their survival. They passed a crevasse that contained frozen remains. A crystalline being had fallen here, their silicon body shattered at the bottom of a 100-meter drop. The marks were old. A previous trial, perhaps. The crystalline are supposed to be invincible in cold, Leo observed. Invincible against temperature, Danny said. But no one is invincible against falling. 3 hours into the glacier field, they heard clicking ahead. The surviving crystalline beings from the current trial had stopped. Their group, which had started with 4 members, was now reduced to 2. One of them had a crack running down their body. They cannot continue, Una reported after a brief conversation. The cracked one will shatter if they try to cross the remaining glaciers. Then they rest here and we continue, one of the Malari suggested. Danny walked forward to the crystalline beings. They regarded him with eyes that looked like frozen stars. Human, why do you approach? You are hurt. Can we help? The uninjured crystalline made a sound like breaking glass. Laughter, perhaps. Help us? We are silicon-based life forms. You're carbon-based. What could you possibly offer? Warmth, Danny said. It might help seal the crack. Warmth damages us. Cold is our natural state. Danny thought for a moment. What about pressure? If we packed snow around the crack tightly, would the compression help hold your friend together? The crystalline beings exchanged looks. Unknown. Our people have never needed external assistance for such injuries. First time for everything. Working carefully, the humans and Malari packed snow around the cracked crystalline being, creating a supportive shell that held the damaged sections together. It was not a cure, but it was stable. This will hold until we reach the checkpoint, Danny said. Medical teams there can do proper repairs. The cracked crystalline studied the human with new understanding. Why help us? We mocked your species at the start of this trial. Danny smiled. I have a short memory for insults, and a long memory for people who need help. The alliance grew to 15 beings. 2 crystalline now traveled with them, the injured one moving slowly but steadily 0.5 kilometers to the checkpoint, and the worst was yet to come. The warning came through every communication device simultaneously. Coordinator Sorrell's voice was urgent. Attention, all remaining candidates. A polar vortex has formed unexpectedly. Temperatures will reach minus 130 degrees within 4 hours. Emergency protocols are being considered. Stand by for possible trial cancellation. A second voice interrupted. Gritha, the Frostborn leader, speaking from the checkpoint she had already reached. The Frostborn reject cancellation. Natural conditions are valid test parameters. We demand the trial continue. Silence followed. Then Coordinator Sorrell spoke again. The trial will continue. All candidates proceed at your own risk. Danny stared at the sky. Dark clouds were forming on the northern horizon, moving faster than any storm he had seen in Antarctica. The temperature had already dropped 10 degrees in the last hour. Minus 130, Prius said quietly. No snow shelter will keep us alive at that temperature. One shelter would not, Danny agreed. But what about the biggest shelter ever built? He gathered the alliance around him. 15 beings from 5 different species, standing on ice that would soon become their graves unless they acted. We have 2 choices. We could try to run for the checkpoint and probably die in the open, or we can dig in and survive together. The checkpoint is only 5 kilometers away, one of the Malari protested. In these conditions, 5 kilometers might as well be 5,000. The vortex will hit before we are halfway there. The larger chitin stepped forward. The human is correct. My calculations indicate we have approximately 90 minutes before the temperature becomes lethal for carbon-based life. Reaching the checkpoint would require at least 2 hours at our current pace. Navigator Una looked at her people. At the chitin, at the 2 crystalline beings, one still wrapped in supportive snow. At the 3 humans who had saved them all. What do you need us to do? She asked Danny. Danny pointed to a massive snowdrift at the base of an ice cliff. Everyone digs. The Malari and humans will create the main chamber. The chitin will design the optimal dome shape for heat retention. The crystalline will pack the walls tight. You want us to touch snow repeatedly? The uninjured crystalline asked. Cold strengthens you, right? The more you pack, the stronger you become. And the stronger our walls become. It was the fastest construction project in the history of survival shelters. Beings who had never worked together before moved as one organism. Tentacles and hands and claws and crystalline appendages all worked toward a single goal. The shelter was enormous. Room for 20 beings if necessary. Multiple levels for different species preferences. A deep entrance tunnel to trap warm air. Walls packed so tight they were nearly solid ice. The vortex hit just as the last being crawled inside. The sound was unlike anything any of them had heard. Wind screaming at 400 kilometers per hour. Ice particles moving so fast they could strip flesh from bone. Temperature plunging past minus 100 degrees in minutes. Inside the fortress of snow, 15 beings from 5 species pressed close together. It is still dropping, Priya reported. Minus 110. Minus 115. Hold together, Danny said. Body heat. Share everything you have. The Malari wrapped tentacles around the chitin, whose thin exoskeletons were beginning to crack again. The humans positioned themselves at the center, surrounded by bodies that needed their warmth. Even the crystalline beings, for whom cold was comfort, positioned themselves to block the worst of the chill from reaching the others. "Tell us a story," Una said suddenly. Danny looked at her with confusion. "A story? Now, my grandmother used to say that warmth comes from the heart before it comes from the body. Stories warm the heart. Tell us how your people survived the ice ages." So Danny told them. He told them about small bands of humans huddled in caves while glaciers covered the world. He told them about hunters who shared every kill with the entire tribe. He told them about mothers who kept children alive through winters that lasted years. "We should have died," Danny said. "By every logical measure, humans should have gone extinct. We were too weak, too slow, too fragile. We had no fur, no clothes, no natural weapons. But you survived," the larger chitin observed. "Because we had each other. Because when one person fell, another picked them up. Because we learned that survival is not about being the strongest individual. It is about building the strongest group." The temperature outside reached minus 130 degrees. Inside the shelter, it stabilized at minus 20. Cold enough to be dangerous. Warm enough to survive. Hours passed. The vortex raged. Beings who had been strangers 2 days ago now shared warmth without hesitation. Priya began to hum a song her mother had taught her. A simple melody about sunrise after a long night. One of the Malari joined in with a harmonizing tone from their species' own music. Then a chitin added clicking percussion. By the end, all 15 beings were making music together. Different sounds from different worlds, combining into something none of them could have created alone. Coordinator Sorrel, monitoring from safety, listened to the transmission from inside the shelter with tears in her silver eyes. "What is happening in there?" her assistant asked. "Something that has never happened before," Sorrel replied. "They are becoming a family." 18 hours later, the vortex finally passed. The temperature climbed slowly back towards survivable levels. Minus 100, minus 90, minus 80. Danny was the first to emerge from the shelter. The landscape had been completely transformed. Where there had been rough ice, there was now smooth, white emptiness, scoured clean by the terrible winds. One by one, the others followed him out. All 15 alive. All 15 changed by what they had survived together. "The checkpoint," Leo said, pointing north. The building was visible now, only 5 kilometers away, but between them and safety lay a shape in the snow. A large shape covered in white fur, Gritha, the Frostborn leader who had refused to cancel the trial. She lay 500 meters from the checkpoint, frozen mid-stride. She had tried to prove her species' superiority by walking through the vortex. She had failed, but she was still breathing. "We have to help her," Danny said. N01 argued. Gritha weighed nearly 300 kilograms, and she was frozen almost solid. The Alliance surrounded the fallen Frostborn leader, assessing the situation. Her thick white fur was covered in ice. Her massive body had stopped moving 500 meters from safety. "She is alive," Una confirmed, pressing a tentacle to Gritha's throat. "Barely. Her heart beats once every 30 seconds. The Frostborn have a survival state," the larger chitin explained. "When temperatures become too extreme, their bodies slow down to preserve core functions. But if we do not warm her soon, she will not wake up." Danny looked at the checkpoint. So close. Medical teams were probably watching right now, ready to help. But the trial rules were clear. No external assistance until candidates reach the checkpoint or press their emergency beacons. "We carry her," Danny said. Leo laughed bitterly. "She weighs as much as 3 of us combined. Then all of us carry her." "Malari, can your tentacles grip her body?" Una was already wrapping her tentacles around Gritha's torso. "We can hold her, but we cannot lift this much weight alone." "You will not have to." Danny positioned himself under Gritha's shoulder. "Everyone takes a piece. Humans at the front, Malari in the middle. Chitins support the legs. And us, the uninjured crystalline asked. You walk ahead and check for hidden crevasses." Your eyes are better than ours in this light. The Alliance moved as one. 15 beings carrying a 16th across frozen ground. Every step was a struggle. Gritha's unconscious body kept sliding, kept threatening to fall. The cold was still brutal, still trying to kill them with every breath. But they moved forward 200 meters past. Then 300. The Malari were tiring, their tentacles aching from the unfamiliar strain. The chitin clicked with effort, their repaired exoskeletons protesting the weight. Rest, Danny ordered. They lowered Gritha to the ground and surrounded her, sharing body heat even with an unconscious enemy. Why are we doing this? One of the Malari asked. She wanted the trial to continue. She's the reason we almost died. Danny looked at the massive Frostborn. Even unconscious, she was impressive. A warrior from a species of warriors. Proud, strong, everything humans were not. Because she would have done the same for us, Danny said. You do not know that. No, but I choose to believe it. And maybe if we show her what mercy looks like, she will choose to believe it too. They lifted Gritha again. 100 meters to go. The checkpoint doors opened. Medical teams rushed out, then stopped at the boundary line. They could not help until the candidates crossed that line. Almost there, Priya gasped. Keep moving. 50 meters. The larger chitin stumbled, their damaged exoskeleton finally giving out. They fell, dropping Gritha's legs. The entire group nearly collapsed. Go, the chitin shouted. Leave me here. I will crawl. No one gets left behind, Danny said. It had become the Alliance's motto. Crystalline, can you take the chitin's position? The two silicon beings moved to support Gritha's legs. Their crystalline bodies were not designed for carrying, but they adapted. They always adapted now. 25 meters. The boundary line was a simple marker embedded in the ice. Nothing special to look at, but it meant everything. 10 meters. Danny's legs were failing. Priya was crying from exhaustion. Leo was making sounds that were not quite words. But they kept moving. 5 meters. They crossed the line together. All 16 beings passed the boundary at the same moment. Medical teams swarmed immediately. They took Gritha from the exhausted Alliance and rushed her to treatment. Other medics attended to the chitin's cracked exoskeleton, the injured crystalline's compression wrap, the Malari's exhausted tentacles. Coordinator Sorrel approached Danny, who had collapsed to his knees on the ice. Daniel Reeves, you and your Alliance have completed the ice trial. The Frostborn completed it first, Danny managed to say. Gritha reached the checkpoint before us. Gritha never crossed the boundary. She collapsed 500 meters short. By the rules of the trial, she failed. Danny looked up sharply. What? The Frostborn leader failed the ice trial. Her species certification is void. Danny struggled to his feet. No, that is not right. She survived the vortex. She walked through conditions that killed 2 of her own team. She only collapsed because the storm was worse than anyone predicted. The rules are the rules. Then the rules are wrong. The medical bay fell silent. A human, exhausted and half-frozen, was challenging a coordinator of the Galactic Union. Sorrel studied Danny for a long moment. What would you have me do? She crossed the line. We carried her across. She was part of our group when we finished. She was unconscious. She did not carry herself. We carried her. We are all part of the same trial. If we passed, she passed. That is not how individual species certification works. Danny looked at his Alliance. At the Malari who had nearly died. At the chitin who had given everything. At the crystalline beings who had learned to work with warmth instead of against it. At Priya and Leo, his fellow humans, who had taught an entire galaxy what survival really meant. Then, maybe it is time to change how it works. Sorrel was silent for a very long time. Then she smiled. Perhaps it is. The Galactic Council will need to hear your argument. Can you make it to them as well as you made it to me? Danny looked at his Alliance. Una nodded. The chitin clicked agreement. Even the crystalline beings gestured support. Coordinator Sorrel, we have survived storms that should have killed us. We have crossed glaciers that swallowed better species than ours. We have carried a 300-kilogram warrior across a frozen wasteland. He stood as straight as his exhausted body allowed. I think we can handle a council meeting. The Galactic Council chamber held representatives from over 400 species. Today, every seat was full. Danny Reeves stood at the speaker's platform, wearing borrowed clothes that did not quite fit. Behind him sat his alliance, Navigator Una, the two surviving chitin, the crystalline beings, Leo and Priya. They had traveled directly from Boreal 7 to the Council's headquarters on a priority transport. Gritha was still recovering in medical care, but she had sent a recorded message. The Council recognizes Daniel Reeves of Earth, announced the speaker, an ancient being whose species Danny did not recognize. You have requested to address us regarding the ICE trial results. Danny cleared his throat. Thank you, Speaker. I am not here to complain about rules or ask for special treatment. I am here to suggest that the rules themselves need to change. Murmurs spread through the chamber. Changing Galactic Union rules was not something that happened often. The ICE trial has existed for 3,000 years, the speaker said. It has successfully identified species capable of surviving ice-class worlds. What improvement do you suggest? The trial tests individual species survival. But survival has never been about individuals. My species learned this lesson 10,000 years ago when ice covered our world and nearly killed us all. Danny pressed a control, and images appeared on the chamber screens. Ancient human art showing small figures huddled together in caves. Hunters sharing food. Mothers protecting children. Humans should not have survived. We were too weak, too slow. We had no natural protection against cold. By every measure the Galactic Union uses, we should have failed the ice ages the same way we should have failed your trial. Yet you survived both, the speaker observed. Because we helped each other. Because survival is not about being the strongest alone. It is about building something stronger together. Danny gestured to his alliance. On Boreal 7, I watched species that hated each other learn to work together. I watched beings share warmth with strangers. I watched an alliance form that saved lives no single species could have saved alone. He looked directly at the Council representatives. Is that not what the Galactic Union is supposed to be? Different species working together for common survival. The chamber fell silent. Una rose from her seat. The humans saved my people. We were dying in the cold, and he stopped to help us instead of continuing to safety. No species has ever done that for the Malari before. The larger chitin spoke next. Our calculations showed we would die. The human snow shelter technique was not in any galactic database. He taught us survival methods we had never imagined. Even the uninjured crystalline stepped forward. We mocked the humans at the start of the trial. We believed our silicon bodies made us superior. The human helped us anyway. He asked nothing in return. The speaker considered these statements. You propose a new kind of certification? Danny nodded. A cooperative survival certification. Species that pass it would be allowed to colonize ice worlds together, sharing resources and supporting each other. Instead of competition, cooperation. Some would say that weakens the purpose of the trial. The purpose of a trial is to prove species can survive. We prove that. 16 beings from 6 species survived the worst conditions in ice trial history. Not because any one of us was strong enough alone, because all of us were strong enough together. The chamber screens flickered, and Gritha's face appeared. She was lying in a medical bed, her fur patched with healing agents, but her eyes were clear. Frostborn addressed the council. The speaker acknowledged that Gritha's voice was rough but steady. I demanded the trial continue during the vortex. I believed my species did not need help. I believed strength meant standing alone against the cold. I was wrong. She paused, and Danny saw something in her eyes he had not expected. Gratitude. The humans carried me across the finish line. I do not remember it, but the medical records confirm it. They had every reason to leave me. I had been their enemy. I had put them in danger. They saved me anyway. Gritha looked directly into the camera. The Frostborn have been warriors for 10,000 years. We have fought and conquered and dominated. We have never asked for help, and we have rarely offered it. But maybe that is not strength. Maybe that is just a different kind of weakness. The transmission ended. The speaker called for a vote. Representatives pressed their controls, registering opinions that would shape Galactic Union policy for centuries to come. Danny watched the results appear on screens. The numbers climbed steadily. 60% in favor. 70, 80. Final result. 94% approval. The Cooperative Survival Certification was now official Galactic Union law. The chamber erupted in applause from hundreds of species. Danny felt hands and tentacles and appendages he could not name touching him in congratulation. Later, at a smaller ceremony, Coordinator Sorrel presented the results officially. All members of the Ice Trial Alliance are hereby granted full Ice World colonization rights. Additionally, you are the first recipients of the Cooperative Survival Certification. She smiled at Danny. The Council has also named the first joint colony site on Boreal 7. They're calling it Quincy Station. Danny laughed. After our snow shelters, after the technique that saved all of you, it seems fitting. The Alliance gathered one final time before departing for their separate homeworlds. Beings who had been strangers 3 days ago now stood as something closer to family. Una embraced Danny with her tentacles. My people will never forget what you taught us. The chitin clicked respectfully. We will add human survival techniques to our species' knowledge base. Future generations will learn the Quincy method. Even the crystalline beings offered what passed for warmth among their kind. Perhaps our species will visit Quincy Station someday. It will be interesting to see warmth in action again. Gritha arrived last, walking slowly but standing tall. She approached Danny and stopped directly in front of him. Human, you carried me when I could not carry myself. Among my people, that creates a debt that can never be repaid. I do not want repayment, Danny said. I just want you to remember what it felt like. Gritha was quiet for a moment. Then she did something no human had ever seen a Frostborn do. She knelt. I will remember, and when others need carrying, I will be there. She rose and walked away, leaving Danny surrounded by the alliance that had changed everything. Priya put her hand on his shoulder. Not bad for a species that almost failed the first night. Danny looked at his friends. Human, Malari, chitin, crystalline, Frostborn. Different bodies, different worlds, different histories, same family now. We did not almost fail, he said. We almost taught the galaxy something it had forgotten. That survival is not about being the strongest. It is about being there for each other. He took one last look at the stars visible through the station windows. And I think they are finally starting to remember